Hey, it's Cliff, and I finally went through the Coreum white paper, so I figured we can kind of sit down and go through it together, and I give you my opinions on what I think about it. I got heavy flashbacks going through this paper from like 2017. If any of you guys remember, around that time there was the ICO craze, right? The individual coin offerings, and during that time you had so many of these crap tokens that would actually take someone else's white paper and they would literally just copy another white paper and just switch to their token name on there. And during that time, of course, a lot of people invested, and of course these tokens would rug pull on their investors and nothing would literally happen. So it kind of made me think like how crypto is a little bit different in today's term, because when you have situations like the Celsius stuff going on or Voyager, like it's in the Wall Street Journal now. Like that's actually an improvement, I guess you could say. There's still shady stuff going on, but it's just a little bit different. Like if you would have got rug pulled in that way in 2017 and you told someone, they'd be like, of course you invested in a crypto. Like, what did you think was going to happen? This is magic internet money where people are trying to scam you. So just reading this gave me flashbacks to that period of time. But that's not to say Coreum did that at all. Obviously they wrote this themselves, but it just reminded me of that. So anyway, to start out here, they have their disclaimer, which it just says like, this is not financial advice. Don't sue me, bro. Obviously, nothing here is meant to be an investment for you, which obviously it is, but it isn't. But they have to say that for their legal team. Has their abstract. Doesn't give too many details. It's just telling what they're going to go over. Blah blah blah. That's their table of contents. Big thing that surprised me here is that they are using the Cosmos SDK, so that came out of nowhere, and Tendermint as well. So that was a surprise. It starts out talking about just basically like fault tolerance and how if a third of the machines were not functioning, then this could cause certain things to fail. Yeah, obviously they want fault tolerance within their system. That's pretty much the get-go of that. Talks about voting powers and how they might be assigned to those systems. Well, that's really that big of a deal. But it comes down here to interoperability, which is something that we actually care about. So I used to work in communication security, and one thing we would do is we would take encryption keys for like, I don't know, radios or planes or GPS, whatever it was at the time, whatever needed to be encrypted, and we would wrap those keys. And that's kind of what this reminds me of here. It's pretty much saying that obviously you're going to have like your Ethereum chain, and pretty much what they're going to do is they're going to lock that token, for instance, and then they're just going to mint a new token on Coreum. So essentially it's a completely different token that you're getting, but it allows them to actually have interoperability between the blockchains so we can actually move things back and forth, right? It just makes it a little bit easier, but it just is them telling you that you're not necessarily keeping your original token. It's just kind of a copy of it, and then they burn that new token when you want to transfer it back. So it goes into a little bit of details here. I start talking about different layers, about how they're going to transfer these back and forth. So IBC is an interoperability protocol designed for communications, blah, 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 blah. And they go into details here about different layers here. If you guys are not familiar with the layers, they're just basically what they're referring to is the OSI model here. And essentially how this works, so say like me right now, I'm filming a video. So we would start down here at the physical layer, and it just goes through this cycle of how I'm going to have this video be uploaded into YouTube's cloud, and then from there you're going to try and look at the video. So it's going to come back through the OSI layer, starting from the application going down. You know, you're going to be at the transport layer trying to pull that video. Typically you're going to be using a UDP protocol, which is just a connectionless protocol, so you can view the video really quickly, you know. So anyway, that's just like a bunch of extra stuff, but this is what they're referring to in case you wondered. It's just the OSI model here, and it's just basically saying for at the data layer is where they're going to establish communication channels by creating connections and transferring data between the chains. And at the application layer, that's pretty much just your visual layer. That's where you're going to be able to see all the different things that are actually happening on the blockchain. As I scroll down here, one of the things I noticed, Coreum's been doing all these marketing events with Ripple, but yet when they started talking about all of the different chains that they're going to have interoperability with, Ripple is listed here. So they're listing the blockchains, and you have your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and they listed Ripple. They didn't even like think to list XRP with the crazy lawsuit going on right now, but you know, whatever. Scroll down, it starts talking about sidechain. So that's basically just an extension of the blockchain that they're going to have. So if you have your layer 1 is typically going to have 7,000 transactions per second. So basically they're just putting another side chain to that, which is another chain or another rail from the beyond. So you can multiply that times 2. So if you have your layer 1 chain and a side chain, obviously you're going to have 14,000 because they're each 7,000 transactions per second. So talks about the proof of stake here, and that's pretty much what Coreum is going to be built on. And this is where they kind of switched everything to the inflationary model. Given the fact that the only incentivization mechanism in proof of stake is block rewards, then if there are enough transactions in each block, more fees will be collected and more people will stake their tokens. If there are not enough transactions happening, then the rewards will be too low and the TVO will go down, bringing risk to the network. To accommodate for that problem, variable inflation is introduced. So to me, I'm kind of looking into this. This kind of says that I kind of feel like they thought when this chain went live, there wasn't going to be enough use happening on it, that there would be enough rewards for people to want to keep staking the token, which would keep it secure. And I feel like they were thinking people are going to start selling this token if we can't get enough utility actually happening with it. So to keep people invested in Coreum, I think that's why they switched it to be inflationary, because basically if you're staked at that point, there's always going to be great block rewards, and that pretty much just says people are going to stay for the block rewards, hopefully, right? Because if there wasn't great incentive to be staked, most people are just going to sell the token, right? And that's just going to create a system where you're going to have whales, right? And the more tokens someone actually has, the easier it's going to be for someone to control the network. So that's pretty much what I got out of that. Talks about validators here, which personally I don't plan to run a validator. That's not something I have time for. But it does say down here, if you want to run a validator, you need 10,000 core tokens. So if you're looking to do that, you need to stack up on your core tokens right now. Personally, for me, I'm just going to be a delegator. I'm going to delegate to one of these validators, and most likely I will have to pay a commission. But, you know, I'm okay with that for not having to run a validator. And it states here that delegators are expected to actively participate in governance, which is something I would definitely suggest you guys do, because that's pretty much how you're writing the laws of the blockchain here. It goes into transaction fees, which is all good and dandy. It has their formula for transaction fees. Scrolling through that. Validator rewards, this is where they talk about how it's going to be inflationary, I believe. All right, these rewards consist of transaction fees that go into the block plus additional rewards minted by the blockchain itself. That's the inflationary model of Coreum. All right, so one thing in here, it talks about how the reward is going to be distributed, and this kind of confuses me a little bit. It says that, for example, if all the super validators have 10,000 stake and one of them has 1,000, then the validator will get a portion of the block rewards equal to 1/10 of what they actually should get. So obviously it's saying the more Coreum a validator has staked, the more rewards it's going to get, which to me could possibly bring up issues, because typically you want more validators, right? More validators, you know, are going to decentralize the blockchain a little bit more. So if they're giving your highest rewarded validator a higher percentage of the Coreum rewards, that could potentially be bad for the network. Talks about different ways to punish validators when they misbehave. So you have your two different methods here. One is jailing. That's pretty much just taking them offline. If a validator continues, maybe they do some form of slashing, which is just taking a percentage of the block rewards that they would get. And if you are a delegated to that validator, you will actually be taking a hit there as well. So you want to be delegating to a validator that actually is on the up and up and not doing anything wrong, which could be like not showing up to vote right here, double signing, rejecting a valid block. You want to make sure that your validator is actually promoting the correct information on the blockchain. And so if you want to participate in governance, this is actually how you would do it. It goes through 4 different cycles. There's going to be a proposal submission, which you can, I'm assuming that's going to be on the Coreum webpage where we saw the proposals. I think I showed that in my last sologenic / Coreum video. So I'm assuming you can submit your proposal there, and at that point you will submit a fee, and at that point voting will commence, right? And one thing to point out here is even if you submit a proposal and it doesn't actually get accepted to be voted on, you actually get that feedback. So, and even if they do vote on it as well, you get the feedback. So that's one cool thing about this. It talks about how tokenized stocks will be uniquely identified. Of course they will. That's the whole point of this, is to tokenize it. Minting and burning, whitelisting. It actually, when I read through this, I was kind of surprised that it goes deep in detail on whitelisting, which didn't really make sense to me because anybody with like a Coinbase wallet has worked on whitelisting, so I don't really know what the point of that. Anyway, fungible and non-fungible tokens. So this is definitely what some people are interested in, and it talks about the different examples of what you could do and how you could tokenize things on the blockchain. So there's intellectual property, that's usually what people are thinking when they think of NFTs. That's your Bored Apes and all that crazy stuff, avatars. Physical property, which is going to be like land and houses. If you want to put your deed to your house on the blockchain and have record, this is something that you could do here. Artwork as well. And then there is financial assets. It's going to be your loans or burdens and other responsibilities. So the optimist in me, when I read this, I was like, oh, this is cool. If we had property on the blockchain that, we would be able to track it, and I don't know, you think it'd be easier, it's not a bunch of paperwork, blah, 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 right? The pessimist in me is thinking that the way our government works and how slow the bureaucracy is, this is going to be like 10 years out, and I just don't see this happening anytime soon. I don't see you buying a house through the transfer on a blockchain like anytime soon. And one of the reasons I was actually kind of scared of even dipping my toes in this is because the next section here talks about freezing, right? So it says an account freeze essentially means suspending the ability to transfer and receive account tokens. Token issuers can be fined if an asset can be frozen by its issuer on a specific account. Moreover, the freeze can be applied to specific addresses or to all token holders. So essentially it's just saying they could freeze everybody's wallets, or they could freeze individual wallets. And one thing that we kind of saw this before, and it also was actually on the Cosmos network, was this here was the Prop 20 proposal with Juno. So if you didn't really see what went on with this, basically there was a guy who he gamed an airdrop. He found a way that he could collect more tokens than he was technically supposed to. And basically what they did is they brought up a proposal on if they could take the tokens back from him or not. And the community voted that yes, they should take the tokens from this guy. And there's a lot of different opinions on this, but for me, it was just like, this is against everything crypto stands for, like taking tokens from this guy. Like, I understand what he did was gaming the blockchain, but I feel like it was the developers' responsibilities that they should have had systems in place to stop him from gaming an airdrop. So anyway, they voted on this proposal and they took the tokens away from him. But when they did that, the developer that took the tokens away sent the tokens to a address that didn't exist. So essentially they lost all of that crypto. It was just completely out there in, space somewhere, just floating around, and no one was able to gather that. So I'm thinking of that when I'm thinking about deeds of a house. Say we live in a perfect crypto world where we've actually got the government on board and we're now buying our houses through the blockchain. If we're using things like Coreum, at what point does Coreum or the delegators and validators on the blockchain just decide that you don't deserve your house anymore? That seems kind of shady to me in a way. I personally would not be putting the deed to my house on a blockchain if this is the system that we're going to use. And it kind of surprised me that this was actually going to be a thing for them, because when they typically talk about Coreum, they usually are saying that Coreum is going to be part of DeFi. But if there is ever an ability to have your tokens taken away from you because some dude made a proposal, and you don't know, someone could make something up about you, and then everybody jumps on board, and now for whatever reason they're going to take your house from you, like that's just not going to work for me. That's not it goes against the spirit of crypto. So when I saw that, I was kind of bummed out. I was like, yeah, that's not going to be for me, bro. But anyway, the rest of this, it talks about like the token issuance, and then it goes into whitelisting even more. This is what I was talking about. They're talking about how like whitelisting works. I think everybody knows what whitelisting is. Maybe not. Maybe I'm confused and people don't actually know what whitelisting is. But it talks about smart contracts and how they're going to use WASM, contract flow. They're using Rust as a language if you're a developer and you're interested in that. Talking about their decks, which, we haven't seen yet. And the rest of this really is just like order execution, how you're going to be able to place your orders, like your simple stuff, your market orders or limit orders. They didn't really tell us anything on that. dApps. It does talk about the 10% of the total supply of core is going to be designated for grants. So that was one thing I thought was pretty cool. They're giving back to developers to build on it, so it actually has a use case. And it does go into detail here for all of the things that they've thought up so far. And the first thing that kind of took me by surprise is like it talks about tokenized security being on Coreum, but the whole issue everyone had with Coreum was that they felt like Sologenic was moving away from the XRPL, and Sologenic assured them, no, we are still staying with XRP. We are big XRP proponents. But if you look down here, it talks about cross-border payments and banking and remittance. So it's like, clearly you're trying to compete with XRP, so just be honest about it. But there's a lot of good things in here. Obviously, they have like LP pools if you're going to be into that. There are going to be stable coins built on this. Lending platforms if you're not scared or will ever see yourself getting into lending platforms ever again. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of fluff stuff to me, like metaverse. I don't care about that. Don't care about NFTs. Don't care about gaming and play to earn apps. That's not me. But some of this other stuff is cool. And I'm not even like talking down about them being in cross-border payments. I think that's a great idea, but don't try to tell me you're not competing with XRP when you're literally doing the same thing that they're doing. Like, that doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's all they had in this. It wasn't too deep, but that's pretty much my opinions on it. So I would definitely want to hear your opinions on it down below, and thank you for watching.